This is the only gold strategy you will ever need. Guys, I'll show you step by step how to employ this strategy and make $800 of profit per trade. The strategy is about supply and demand zones, and it is a very well known concept in gold trading, and it is successfully employed by retail traders as well professionals, and you can use it on any time frame from 1 hour to daily, even going down to 5 minutes. So in this video I'll show you step by step how to identify the supply and demand zones and why this strategy is so popular and you can use it profitably. But not only that, stay until the end of the video because I will show you the results of my backtest on this strategy plus the live results of trading after deploying the strategy of my trading. Yeah, I'll show you the returns, the drawdowns, everything about the statistics of this strategy. So it will be a really interesting one. Stay with me and let's get into it. The supply and demand zones, guys, are similar to the support and resistance lines. However, they're more like regions or zones of supply and demand. And with this concept, we are trying to identify the exact regions where the big guys, the banks, the professional traders are having their orders set in to activate whenever the price approaches this level. So our idea is to try and capture this burst of activity, burst of selling or burst of buying driven by the big guys, the smart traders. And to do that, we need to be able to identify the supply and demand zones on the chart. Up here, as you can see, for the gold, we have the beautiful example of a supply and demand zones where the price was oscillating between the two zones over a few days in a row, right? First it was into the supply zone, then it activated selling orders, price went down to the demand zone, from where we had activated buying orders again into the supply zone. So this happened a few times over before we had a huge spike in the demand zone. So there was an accumulation of buying power, of buying pressure from the demand zones, and the price spiked up above the supply zone and then continued running upwards. So that's one of the ways, and actually one of the most used ways to trade the supply and demand zones whenever the price breaks out from the zone. So for example, the price broke above the supply zone and continued running. So that's one way to trade the strategy. Another way is to try and identify the demand zones and actually position yourself in the demand zone or in the supply zone. That's generally about the strategy, guys, but I would like to show you a few examples on the gold chart in particular. So let's move to the chart. Okay guys, we're on the charts now, and we have the example from earlier, which we covered, the supply and demand zones I've found out on the 26th and 27th of February this year, like 1 month ago actually. And then we were talking about the setup, because there are two ways to trade the supply demand zones. One is the breakout, right? The price breakouts above the supply zone or below the demand zone, and the trend would continue. Or you just sell in the supply zone and buy in the demand zone. How do you play this strategy? Depends on it's very important. Depends on the condition of the current market regime. If the market is trending in one direction, like going upwards with time, this supply demand zone would be like a pause in the trend, right? And then what you want to do is to buy in the zone which is with the trend. So for example, if the price goes up and it's trending upwards, like this one, you want to buy in the demand zone and then position yourself to ride the trend. However, if the market regime is like consolidating or moving sideways, like up here, you can buy in the demand, sell in the supply, and then repeat, right? Sell the supply, buy the demand, etc. That's how you play it out. But in this given example, yeah, the price broke above the supply zone and it never went back. I mean, it just continued upward. So let's try to identify a few more regions like that which have worked, and I already see one. It is a little bit drifting downwards, but still it's a very good example, and yeah, I have it up here. So let's try to find this like demand zone, guys. It's beautiful demand zone, as you can see. As well, the supply zone is somewhere around here. Actually, this figure may resemble a little bit of a ascending triangle down as well. Let me change the color. Yeah, like that's a little bit like a triangle, which is another figure, but it doesn't really change our demand zone. So yeah, guys, as you can see, every time the price have approached this demand zone, there were buying orders, limit orders, which were pushing the price upwards. There was buying pressure every single time that the price approached the supply, the demand zone. So generally, what you want to do is just, because the trend is upwards, when you look at the big picture, when you put on the daily and you look at the big picture, the trend, let me take those out. The trend is going up, up, up. So generally, in a trend upwards, you want to buy. You don't want to really go against the trend and sell. So you just identify those zones, and in the demand zones you buy, and you put the risk reward ratio 2 to 1, for example, like that. So you have a take profit of, let's say, 1.2%, which for gold is quite, I would say, prudent, and your stop loss is 0.6, right? You take 1.2% and you risk 0.6. Then you can multiply that with some leverage you're using. For example, let's say you're trading 1 to 10 leverage. Obviously, 0.2% would be 12% return on your position if you apply 1 to 10 leverage. So it's a kind of good risk reward ratio for trading this strategy. However, if you want to go even like take the full amount of the strategy, you always put your target to be like in the supply zone. So let's say in this case it will be 1.84% or 1.8% the take profit, and the risk ratio you can just use like 0.6. So it's a little bit like double the demand zone from the entry point. And that's the main idea of the strategy, guys. And if you go through the chart and through time, you find those supply and demand regions everywhere. The idea is to identify supply demand zones and trade from them. If you have a breakout, just keep riding the trend. It is really that much simple. To go a little bit further, guys, you know that I'm a quant and a Python guy. I actually have this strategy automated. I had backtested it to find the most profitable combination of parameters and trade it for the time. So I had it deployed for like 6 months, but I will now share with you the results of this strategy, and I'll share the code with you in the end. I'll give you a link down below where you can get the code of the conditions I have for this backtest. Before I show you the results, guys, I want to talk a little bit about how we can identify those zones in a programmatic way, because for the computer or the backtester, we are not able to like visually draw those supply and demand zones. We need to find a workaround to calculate those supply and demand zones in a rolling fashion, right? In a rolling window. So I want to talk a little bit about that, what I've used and my workaround. Generally, I used the true range, and then I have added a little bit of the spread between high and low. And as well, I trade the strategy with the risk reward ratio, but I usually go with 2% take profit and 1% stop loss, generally, to have 2 to 1 risk reward ratio. And I like those round numbers, 2%, 1%. It's very easy and convenient for me to calculate the risk and how much I should risk for a given trade. Yeah, that's about the implementation of the strategy. Now I will show you how the graph actually looks with the moving supply and demand zones. Using my approach about the supply and demand zones by employing the true range and some other minor details. For a given day, I get the following graph, right? The blue line is the close price, and then the supply zone is the red one, and the demand is the yellow one. As you can see, those zones are actually moving with time. However, this is the closest approach I've been able to get for the supply and demand zones programmatically. And yeah, the strategy I'm going to show you and I've been employing. The idea is to follow what I explained on the chart, but it's a little bit different how it works behind the scene. But generally, yeah, you want the price to get into the demand zone to be buying or into the supply zone to be selling, with some other minor conditions. So those are the results of the strategy, guys. As you can see, we have the in sample and out of sample periods. The in sample is the period I use to generate the backtest and decide if I want to trade a strategy, and after that I deployed it at a given date of time and started trading it. And that's the out of sample period, which was the last few months. But the whole period of the whole study, the backtest plus the out of sample, is over the last 1 year. I always go for strategies which have worked over the last 1 year and assume they'll continue to work for the next year, for example. But yeah, as you can see, the cumulative return of the strategy is 14% during the last few months since its life is 10.1%. And the drawdown is only 1%. So yeah, if you apply, for example, some leverage on this strategy, you can get a very decent yearly return based on gold. So the supply demand zones are working very well for gold. They're traded by banks, institutional investors, sophisticated pro traders, as well retail traders, and it is one of the strategy you definitely need in your arsenal of tools to tackle the market. Thank you very much. By the way, the conditions of this exact backtest and strategy in Python script, there will be a link down below in the video. If you want to get them, you'll be able to download them from a link. As well, if you want to join my Discord, where I have automated different similar strategies on stocks, crypto, as well on commodities, you can join my Patreon, and from there you can get access to the Discord. Thank you very much for your time, really appreciate it. If you like this content, please like, subscribe, share, as well, yeah, support me on Patreon. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.